fantasy football team.
We're live, baby. Fuck your football team.
My fantasy football team sucks.
Do you do fantasy football?
I don't. No, I'm not a big sports guy.
You don't either.
No, I don't. I just watch
What's
football.
your guys' punishment this year for your fantasy football?
I think you have to wear a dress, a single dress, and fit both people in it. So I'm assuming it'll be like a 4X type of dress.
What do you mean both people?
So both people have to fit inside
both
the
people?
same article. The last two.
Oh,
losers.
there you go. That yeah, two losers now.
So two losers.
Oh, man. That's
Um,
you're not first, you're last.
I mean,
Fucking Ricky Bobby, baby.
as long as I'm not,
Shake and bake, motherfucker.
All right, so you got to
Shake
wear it
and bake.
together.
as long as I'm not 10th or 9th, I think we're good.
Is it butt to nut or is it butt to butt?
That's a good question. I don't know.
That is a very good question.
I'm not sure. I just
It's a
know that I'm
game
not,
changer.
I'm not getting
He
fucked.
gets to choose. He gets to choose.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'd rather be nut the butt. You know, it's got to be nut the butt. If it's not nut the butt, I don't want it.
It's not nuts about your own.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want it.
I'm glad I don't play that shit.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of
I don't know how I would respond to something. I don't know.
there's a lot of injuries. If you look at the app, everybody's questionable. I mean,
When you go nut to butt, P. Diddy.
As long as it's
no Diddy.
as long as it's not like last year where you guys had the milk and the guy
Oh, and he was
ended
dumping all
up
over
doing a
himself?
poncho while pouring milk.
Look,
that is
he wasn't
that is
supposed
not-
to wear a
The fact that he was
poncho.
wearing a poncho
That-
is so upsetting.
I was gonna say a word, but I kind of refrained from
Good
it.
job.
But it was
They're high five on that one.
yeah, boom,
Good.
Yeah, we-
because that
we don't
was
need to
so like female like.
Do you know a story about this?
No.
So the guy that lost, he had to stand at the corner of on Main Street, and he was supposed to dump milk every time somebody honked. He was supposed to dump just a shit ton of milk on himself. And I mean, he did, but he put on a poncho,
Which
And I
kind of
feel like-
defeated the purpose.
I feel like this
Of the
year
milk.
you guys should make him do it again, just because
Without
last
the
year
poncho.
And then there's
there's and it's not more expensive to buy milk.
there's a
so there you
group
go.
on Facebook of
Yeah.
moms that are don't say the town,
I'll cut it out.
like town moms, and they were going in on, oh, why are you guys wasting milk? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're like the people that quote unquote have money, and you're worried about a little freaking $1.50 milk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
the fact-
ridiculous.
The fact that that guy got out of that punishment by putting a poncho on.
It was
He's got a
not.
receipt.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
not supposed to happen
It's
like
more
that.
upsetting that the other people let it happen.
Maybe we should bring this up. I'll bring it up in the next.
Which one?
It
the
is,
next
it
chat.
is being brought up. It is
What?
being
What do
brought
you
up.
Oh, like in the actual chat?
We'll bring it up in the actual chat. Hey, we need
decided
to. We have
that he needs to redo the
unanimous
punishment.
decision.
This is the
We
way.
have
he
to
needs
redo.
to redo the
poncho.
punishment. You know, I don't know that if he listens to this podcast, but if he does, you have to redo the punishment. That was not how it was supposed to go down.
It's not part of the plan.
I don't-
Were there clear guidelines though?
You know,
for the
I don't
punishment?
think there were
'Cause
I
guidelines
think he
that
got on
said
technicality.
He
Yeah.
got on the technicality.
he got
I
out
would
on
say,
tech-
yeah.
he said there was no ponchos anywhere in the small
The
print.
rules.
No one said I can't wear a
Correct.
poncho.
When grown men come up with a plan,
And then you take the side way out.
and you get a technicality on it, it's like, bro, grow some balls
Yeah.
and do it the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Are you
And
able
the
to
way it's
use one of
supposed to be
those like
done?
little boards that, you know, like if instead of us always chiming in on the mic, can you do one of those like buttons? You press the button, it goes
Like they did
bruh.
for the debate.
Bruh.
Just, we should figure out. We have to do one for when Matt posts.
That's what we're doing
right there.
Every time he talks about
Bring it
social
closer to
media,
the mic. Bring it closer to the mic. There you go.
every time he talks about social media,
I'm gonna have to get that. What's that thing called?
It's called rap horn. So
Just give some air
rap.
horn.
This is what
Rap
What?
Rap horn. Oh,
I love it.
I swear to
I
heard
love it.
rat porn the whole time. Like, what's that?
And of
Yeah,
course,
it's the best.
Matt is actually
absolutely. We're gonna download that.
I get when every time I do it, people are like, "You have that so accessible."
Now
Why?"
let me just verify. You said rap as in Romeo Alpha Papa, correct?
Yep. Horn.
porn.
Rap horn.
All together?
No, it should
Rap
be
horn.
2 words. Just in the App Store, rap horn.
I put rap horn. I can't. It says ham horn. What's a ham horn?
It just
It's,
sounds like a pig.
It's a horn that
Jamaican
comes from
horn.
ham.
It just got to sound like a pig. Right? Speaking
I'm
of
gonna
pigs,
download the
four
Jamaican
that are
horn.
in this room.
Excuse me?
I said, speaking of pigs, the 4 that are in this room.
Yeah, seriously, that's why you smell bacon. Yeah, I
This is
guess
good. Let's see what the Jamaican horn
four
is.
cows in one
Yo,
room.
did you see my toe?
No, but
Did
I
you see
wanna
mine?
hear- I want to hear how you got choked out this morning by a purple belt.
Oh God, fucking this.
Oh yeah, that's right. Chris does jujitsu now.
Yo, I'm pretty sure Tank just ran through everything in the house. Yeah, man. So I'm rolling with, I don't know, it's like however many people this morning. And Purple comes over. He's a bigger dude. And he just, he's like, all right, we do the handshake, whatever. And he goes, what do you know? He's like, going a little slow. I go, no, don't worry about it. Like, I learned by actual doing. He goes, okay. I was seeing stars and pretty sure my neck got destroyed and crushed into a flat piece of paper within like 35 seconds.
You didn't pass out though.
Well, I guess there goes workers'
Black
comp.
bro, I was like, hold on, he's new. And then literally I just go, it's okay. And then they started dying.
The first time I passed out, bro, it was crazy
it?
because I remember the guy asking me, he's like, "You okay?" And I woke up when he said, "You okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then I sat back down. I was like, "No, I'm not okay." I literally go, in my mind, I felt okay, but I wasn't okay. So I go, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then I sit back down. I was like, "No, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Hold on, give me a second." So I sat like one round. I sat to the side, and then I went right back into it. But passing out is crazy.
But it was like,
I passed out twice already.
when I
It
left
did.
today, it was the same. God damn it, man.
Great.
It
Great
was-
timing.
It was
This is
the
called the
same
Jamaican horn.
exact reaction. Jamaican.
I got my neck wrapped in. Oh, this is gonna be great.
He's not allowed to
Thank
have
you, Ryan.
it. He's not allowed to have this.
You can thank Brian for this.
I will slam your
But-
fucking phone on the floor.
So when I left, my thought process to myself was, and I said it to like 3 or 4 of the people when I left, thank you, everything else. The culture in jiu-jitsu is amazing. You immediately feel like a family. And that was one of the things that both of you told me about even going to Monster.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just acceptance, but like they're going to bring you in within a minute. I felt that way. And even today I rolled with, like I said, about 4 new people that I have never, talked to, rolled with. And you're laughing at one point, like, I tried to get a chokehold on this guy. It wasn't happening. So he pretended to just fall asleep. So I started caressing the top of his head. Matt, fucking hey, dude.
fucking guy, man.
And so I'm like,
Child, you fucking dickhead.
You no longer get your phone.
Fucking child.
I got
So-
he just court.
Matthias just got his fucking phone taken away. For those of you that can't see what
So
just
that you
happened.
guys don't have to hear a
Holy
thousand different
fucking shit, this
random
guy.
noise alerts.
Holy fuck.
but I
There you
saw,
go,
like,
child.
It's on Brian, not on me.
I started like patting his head. Everyone started. People just stopped and started laughing. So it's but the whole thing is you're walking out of it. You're exhausted. You're tired, but you made yourself go through something that could be nerve wracking for you because especially without you guys there, it's only my 3rd class, so everyone else there knows each other. You're like, all right, well, I kind of gotta just jump in and be outgoing and talk to people. But when you leave, the sense of like self-being is so rewarding because you just got your ass kicked for an hour.
Yeah.
But
Humbling.
you did something. You
Oh,
worked
that
through
it is.
such hard circumstances, right? Like trying to get out of a chokehold, trying to get out of hold, a leg lock or whatever else, a Kimura. And
Wow, he
when
knows the names of them already.
He's
I got
starting.
one.
Wow, he's
I got
Googling.
one.
He's Googling. He's Googling.
I did on the toilet today.
What is that?
They were such jujitsu moves.
He's like, what is that when he has his wrist around my neck and grabs his elbow and squeezes?
It's serious. It's not. Was it erotic asphyxiation? I can tell you that.
I like it.
But just the purpose it gives, and I know you guys are telling me go to jiu-jitsu, go. And other people said the same thing. I was, I can say for even mentally, just working through whether it's patience with my kids, patience on the job. I had a guy yesterday going fucking berserk, and I just stood there. Everyone's like, "Dude, you already do his thing?" I'm like, "No, just go. Let him do his thing." But you teach your mind just how to work through problems, how to problem solve,
How to remain calm.
right. Like,
When
I don't wanna
everything
do
is
this,
chaotic.
I could do this. I'm going to wait for him to make this step, and then I'm going to make this move. It just, and I've already seen it in my oldest that you saw go that goes is, I'll tell him like, "Hey, what's sensei say?" And he's self-discipline. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, turn it the fuck on.
Yeah.
Pay attention." And he does. And then he calls me old man, but still, today, old man. I'm like,
The cool thing is that
"What did you say to me?"
jujitsu is no
My
different
God,
than
kid.
going. Jujitsu no different than going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, it's a little bit.
It is
Scary.
but it's not, but it is.
Well, I was going to tell you that the biggest difference that I see is that you go to the gym and let's say you pick up, 45-pound dumbbells and, you feel like you can't do it. So you put them down and you kind of feel like a little embarrassed. Well, there's no time for embarrassing in jujitsu. You're going to go in and it's already an automatic, uncomfortable feeling putting your hands on somebody else, especially if you've never been in law enforcement and you don't have any siblings and you grew up in today's generation, you're not putting your hands on people. So already on the mat, just bumping, you're like, all right, what do I do now? What do I do? And you kind of watch everybody around you, and then you get kind of comfortable a little bit, and you kind of start getting in the moment, and then you black out. I don't know about you. I block out. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. It's just happening. It's almost survival.
Yeah.
You don't have time to go, oh, he just grabbed my knee. No, you just react. Everything's a reaction.
I think what I told everyone that I roll with, I go, listen, I really don't know any moves. My whole purpose is I'm going to try not to die. And I tell them, like, do what you want. I'm not, because I'm going to learn. I'm like, oh, you did that with my arm. And then I try to do it with somebody else. But
I've been doing it for 3 years, and my purpose is still not to die.
Yeah.
But I can, it's a good purpose. But I can tell you though, like Matthias was saying, I show up there, and the whole time I'm there, I'm not thinking about anything else other than being there. So like mental health wise, for me, it's phenomenal. Like I don't think about anything else other than being there, being on those mats. If I'm not around, I'm watching what everybody else is doing, because I'm learning, I'm catching on to what anybody else or everybody else is doing. So I'm always watching. And even my kids go to the same gym, and I keep them in the gym even though they don't like to be there, because they are picking things up whether they believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen the transition from when they started to now, and whether they like it or not, they're picking things up little by little. And eventually what's going to happen is they're either going to like it, or they're going to grow up and they're not going to like it, but they learn some skills that are going to help them for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. All right. And now, talking about the rest of their lives, let's get into a nice segue to introduce the guest for today, Bryan. He is a former Marine. Or still a Marine. They don't like to be former.
Once a Marine.
Once a Marine is always a Marine, whatever. He served in the Marine Corps from 2005 to 2013. He was an infantry mortar and MP and deployed to Iraq from 2008 to 2009. That's when stuff was actually bad out there. For those of you that don't know, he is currently an LEO for an agency. He is the founder and VP of a police armed force association and veterans / service member advocacy organization, and currently still serving in the Air National Guard from 2015 till now, where he is a crew chief and an additional duty first sergeant. I met Bryan at I would say a mission we were doing for COVID. We were doing the vaccination site where I was the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge. And Bryan was one of the guys that was working for me at the time. And when he came in, I immediately liked him because of his, I guess, leadership at the time. He was an E5 at the time, and I thought that his leadership was phenomenal compared to other people that I had that were higher ranking than him and couldn't even do half of the stuff that he was doing. He was performing at a level where I was very impressed by him. And right away, I was like, hey, man, when are you getting promoted? Like, I need to make you a squad leader, right? You remember that, right? Yeah. I need to make you a squad leader. I need to make you a team leader. Like, I need you to be doing more than what you're doing, because he was so good at what he was doing. And he was good with the people. And that's what you need in a leadership role. So, Bryan, go ahead and talk to us.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that introduction.
And it's Mortarman, not Mortar.
Mortarman.
He's a 0341 Mortarman.
I mean, I can get.
Okay, hold on.
Too.
I don't give a shit how you pronounce the Marine stuff.
Recently corrected on that.
You guys, you know when they have dream catchers? I think you guys are bullet catchers. As the Marines. So, okay, go ahead, Mortarman.
A little friendly camaraderie.
I was recently corrected on that, actually. I won't get too much into it, but I was told that I have to Air Force it up a little bit. I can't call myself. I can't say that I was an infantry mortarman. I have to figure out an Air Force term. So, ammunition technician,
ammo
technician. That's
in the rear with the gear.
Yeah,
in the rear with the gear.
But,
I like it.
Yeah, that was a good experience, COVID. That kind of changed a lot of that kind of changed my path in the military going on that mission, because I kind of spent six years at the base, not really doing anything, like not really branching out of my shop. I wasn't very open. I kind of just hung out in my shop, did my thing, did my job, and kind of just went there for the drill weekends and went home. And then COVID, because we don't really, I don't know if this is kind of just our job, like a job in maintenance, because Angel was in maintenance for as a first sergeant. Like, I don't know if it's just in maintenance, but it's kind of, you show up, it's not like the Marine Corps structure of leadership. Like when I showed up for a drill weekend, you know, you report to your squad leader who reports to the platoon sergeant. You know what I mean? It's not like that. It's like, all right, what do we got to work on this weekend?
Yeah.
Who's doing what project on the plane? Like, what do we got to do? And let's get it done. It's not, you know, so COVID was more of like an actual leadership structured experience. And it was kind of the first one that I had in the Air Force. So it really kind of changed my path. Like I was kind of like, I just want to get out at that point. And then COVID kind of changed that, because
I think the beautiful thing about that mission that we had at the time, and for you, it might have been the first time. For me, it wasn't, because I was in a prior mission where I dealt with other branches. But the beauty about it was we had Marines, we had Air Force, we had Navy, we had everybody in there.
Dude, the one we were at, literally is every
correct.
single, didn't matter who I talked to, there was a whole different, and I learned so much about the military. I'm like, everywhere you talk to, completely different branch, completely different
experience, completely everything. Correct. And that was the beauty about being there. I would say for somebody maybe like you that hasn't or that hadn't at the time experienced that kind of joint force, and being in that kind of environment, it opens your eyes a lot, because you get to learn a lot of their backgrounds and a lot of what they went through and what they've done. It's beautiful. I enjoyed it a lot. And again, I used to work for another mission prior to, so I've been privy to being in those joint task force. But for somebody that has never been in a task force at joint task force, I think that was a beautiful spot to learn from.
Yeah, I mean, and too, like, because unless you work outside, like when I was in the Marine Corps, I thought one way. You know, you think the Marine Corps way, you think the way that they have you think. The mindset and the culture is very
brainwash you.
It's programmed, I would say.
Brainwash.
And just going into the Air Force really expanded the way that I thought. And like you get a mentor who may be a different kind of leader, and I didn't really experience that when I was in the Marine Corps. So
we got to think too with the difference in the job. You know, being an infantryman, you know, there's a lot more of the little soldiers running around than there is leadership. You know, leadership is very small, although we have team leaders of, you know, whatever, 5-6 guys. If you're on a mortar team, just explain a little bit to the listeners, what does a mortarman do, for example?
So, well, you operate as a team. You know, you have a mortar system. So I was on the 81 millimeter mortar system. We never saw combat as mortars. We never saw combat as a unit.
So not every Marine sees combat? Oh, wow. Okay. That's crazy.
Well, so when we deployed in 2008, I mean, in parts of Iraq, it was really bad at that time.
I'm just saying, because every Marine walks around like they fucking killed Bin Laden themselves. Is all I'm saying. But okay. As you were.
It's just a pride, you know? It's a pride, all right? Let us have that.
You could be a pencil pusher somewhere.
Look, you got your fucking chair. We got our pride.
Oh, my God. Chair and air conditioning.
Yeah, you got your chair, your air conditioning. Let's have a little bit of pride, all right?
I don't hear anything wrong with that. Chair, air conditioning. Sounds like we got great conditions. Okay.
So you're an 81 millimeter.
So I was an 81. I was trained as an 81 millimeter mortarman, but honestly, when we were doing the workup for the deployment, we did very little mortar training. We did a lot of mounted patrol operations, because that's what we were getting ready to go do, or so they thought. And then when we wound up getting to Iraq, they're like, we don't really know what you're going to be doing yet. So like kind of hang out for a couple of days. And then a few days later, they came back and they're like, all right, you guys are the new base MPs. And we were like, but none of us are cops. So like we had some NYPD cops, you know? So those were the guys that wound up having to train us when we were in Iraq. Like,
on the go.
Like on the go.
That's crazy.
Hey, this is how you handcuff someone. Hey, this is so they threw us in pickup trucks with lights on them, and they were like, "You're the new cops."
Typical.
So we did all that mortar. We did the mortar training. We did all that mounted operation training in the desert in Cali.
It's the Wild West.
That's it. We went from that to now we're in Iraq, and they wanted us to write summonses for people not wearing glow belts in the middle of the night. I swear to God.
Hold on. So what court do you write that to? Like, how does that work?
So it's the base.
No, you would see like a first or a first sergeant. You would see the base commander. So you would write the summons to the person, but the person has to go see either their first sergeant, and their first sergeant has to see the commander. It's something like that.
Snitching on your friend.
Right.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
We call those Blue Falcons, right?
Blue Falcon.
Yeah, but guess what? It's the pride, and they do it because that's their job. They do it. It happens more often than not.
Yeah, I didn't do it when I was
You
there.
didn't, but I bet there were other people that did it.
They're definitely,
Chris is very
definitely
confused.
were,
Chris, what's the problem?
No, I'm just trying to think of like the mentality of it. Like,
So the mentality is this. I'll put it to you. I'll put it to you like Garrison.
It's a
for
safety
example.
concern. You have to be seen.
no, I get that, but like you're deployed to a war zone. You guys are all, essentially one team. And it's like
One
hey,
team,
man,
one
you're
fight.
not-
Something tells me Chris is about to ask the same questions we've been asking for the last 20 years.
You're not wearing a glove belt. I'm gonna fuck you over while we're deployed into a war country. It's like,
So
I mean, that
you
sounds
have,
counterintuitive, but okay,
you have a
do what
difference,
you want.
right? You have theater, which is overseas, and you have garrison, which is back at home, right?
And
And
Garrison?
garrison.
I don't know, it was a South Park joke.
So you'll have to post that one. I don't think I've seen that one. So now when you're overseas, yes, you're still getting yelled at for getting specific haircuts. You're still asked to hygiene. You're still asked to maintain a professional appearance.
That'd be gross.
It's difficult. It is. And when you're there on your first time, you're sitting there wondering like, what the fuck is this, right? Why do we have to do these things? And yes, I still wonder till this day what some of the things were. I'll have to find this video that I watched that somebody sent to me, but it was talking about what's that guy's name? It'll come to me in a minute. I'll pull it up, and I know you guys have seen him a lot. He's a very good podcaster, but he got an email, and the email was specifying, I think they were honoring veterans on Veterans Day, or it could have been Memorial Day, and he was telling all this stuff about how there was dead bodies, and they described what pink mist was, and this, that, and the other, and he was just a very disgruntled veteran that goes, listen, I was watching my buddies fucking die, and some guy's getting chewed out for not having a haircut, by a commander who was in his suite, right, and stuff like that. And so you hear stories like that, and it's like, what, that really goes on? And it's like, yeah.
You mean that goes on all the time.
Yeah,
It
that's common.
It happens in garrison. It happens deployed. Like people make decisions from a place where their decisions do not affect them.
Exactly.
They're not affected by what they're making you do.
Yeah.
But that makes
And it
sense.
happens all the time.
That's everywhere. That's even in the police field. How
Correct.
many times do we
Yeah,
get somebody?
Yeah, but I will tell you
Because we
this.
we turn around like, dude,
this
you
is-
haven't seen the street in fucking 8 years.
This is what the difference is, though. Well, you just hit it right on the head. You have, in the police department, you move up the ranks, right? You have to take a test. You go from PO to detective as an interviewer. You go from PO to sergeant. You had to take the sergeant exam. Then you have to take a lieutenant's exam. Then you have to take, the captains. And you go on and so forth. I think the captain is the last one. Everything else is kind of like
You
a
have to
merit.
be appointed. You have to be
You have to be
appointed.
appointed, right? In the military, you get promoted based on merit, on pros and cons. There's a couple different things in the Marine Corps. There's a CFT, which is a combat fitness test, a PT exam. Like the
rifle score.
the rifle score. There's a lot of stuff that goes into effect. But you could have essentially a 4-year Marine who's a sergeant, and maybe if they re-enlist on their 5th year, they're a staff sergeant. In the police department, you're not. There's no way you're a fucking 5-year, deputy inspector.
Not a deputy inspector, but definitely a sergeant.
Okay, a sergeant.
If you take the test at the right time, depending on when you come
There's
in.
a huge difference between a sergeant, and correct me if I'm wrong, a sergeant in the police department and their leadership skills versus a staff sergeant who is now in charge of, let's call it 40, 50 people.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
That's
Yeah,
one of the
there's a
biggest.
huge
That's one of my biggest issues, especially with my department, in the lack of leadership skills from those who are bosses. They are too much bosses and not any leadership whatsoever.
But that's the problem. They're bosses. They're not leaders.
They're not leaders,
And there's a
exactly.
huge difference. And I literally have this conversation every single night with somebody because the bosses are telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And they may not know a damn thing about what they're telling you what to do. And it irks me. But unfortunately, for us, I would say military guys, I feel like we see it more than the non-prior military and non-prior service because we've been exposed to actual leaders. And you come into the PD where you can just take a test, right? You can just take a test and become a boss, but not know a damn thing about how to be a leader. You don't have to be a leader to be a boss.
Yeah.
At all.
And unfortunately, on my department, it's not even the fact that you can take a test and whatever you score, you get promoted. You take a test, and then you get put on a list. you get an interview. You get an interview, and then from that interview, it's either you're highly recommended for promotion, you're recommended for promotion, or you're not recommended for promotion. Then there's no rhyme or reason to when you get promoted. So if you got 100 on the test and you're highly recommended for promotion, but somebody else got a 65 and that was passing, and they also got highly recommended for promotion, they're probably going to get promoted before you.
Stop. With a 65? That's crazy.
Because the grade doesn't matter.
So I will tell you this. This is one thing that I'm working on. I can speak for myself. You know, I'm not going to speak for Angel. Angel has plenty of good, comments to say about this topic. But for me, being in the military, him being in the military, again, we do know that there's numerous ways to get promoted, right? Not just one. For me, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not the best test taker. Here we go. We know. I am not the best test taker, right? So with that being said, I have to work on, my test taking skill. See how we can't ever get anything done here?
I've listened to all your episodes thus far. Who was it? Did you fail the test in the academy?
Hold on. Time out. No.
I know what test you guys are talking about.
We did not fail the test. You have to score 100.
I know what test it is.
We scored a 95, and it was the wording on that question.
Yeah.
So we ended up scoring a 95 on the damn test. 95 is a freaking great score, by the way, guys. 95 is not failing. But for that specific test, we had to take a refresher and retake the test.
Yeah.
So yes, we didn't fail. But yes, I know you know which test that is. But I'm not for liability purposes. I'm not going to say which.
I don't know what happened with you two, but
I have
I did just fine.
Well, yeah, I think we got the same question wrong.
No.
No?
No. Because he used to sit right next to me. So no, don't make it sound like you cheated off of me or like that. No.
I'm almost positive that the people that had to retake the test,
it was one question.
It was the same question.
So it was horribly worded, and everybody kind of
correct. There was the one question that whoever did not satisfy the score, not failed, did not satisfy the score.
That's a good way of putting it.
That is.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate validation. It's all I need. Thank you guys. So the ones that didn't satisfy the score,
there's a sarcasm button, right? All I need to make one. Sarcasm. No, not that one. It'll say sarcasm.
So for those that didn't satisfy the score, it was the same question. It was the one question.
Sounds like an Air Force test.
Right. Yeah.
So
it is.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that makes me, focus on something that I need to work on. Maybe like hitting the books, reading different, taking different notes, getting help from other sources so I can become a better test taker and stop making the fucking excuse that, hey, I suck at test taking, because that's the only thing holding me back from being a leader. I've spoken to numerous people who are above the rank of lieutenant.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you'd be a great boss.
Yeah.
But the problem is I can't get there unless I focus on passing this test.
I don't want to be a boss. I want to be a leader. I want to bring my leadership from the military. I've deployed, people's lives on the line. I had people under me while deployed. As I was at E4 and when I was at E5, that doesn't happen in the PD. You don't have that kind of leadership in the PD. So you don't have that kind of leadership.
What is that? So what does that do?
And I'm not saying everyone, because we do have some good leaders in the PD. So I'm not gonna blanket statement and say that there's none.
No, but there's a good percentage
there's a good percentage that are just straight up bosses and have zero leadership skills. Zero, but they're bosses because they took a test.
Let's talk about a different agency, for example. Angel
Bryan is from a different agency.
Bryan's from a different agency, but we'll talk about our buddy Lito.
And so is Chris.
But he's not a boss.
No, but he is a boss.
Well, he used to be.
He is a boss.
He gave it away. Look, there's a DI, Lito, right? Lito Gill, that we went and we sat through a podcast, with two of our buddies. And he's a DI. That's pretty high ranking.
Yep.
And the guy is a gentleman. He's a leader. He is, very open door policy when his guys and girls, need to go talk to him about certain things. I've heard it, because these guys are coming to our academy from the city, and they're like, hey, I'll talk about him, because there was a call that I went to. I don't know if you heard that episode, but
he said it in the podcast.
Yeah, he said in the podcast.
He's open to it.
So his daughter was in the beginning stages of having epilepsy.
Okay.
Right. And so she kept having seizures, and I rolled up. It was a midnight call. It was like 6:00 in the morning. I was getting ready to go back to my relief point, and I showed up. Dad's freaking out. I didn't know who he was, you know. Mom is freaking out. And all I did is I brought the oxygen tank. I administered a little bit of oxygen. I put her head on my lap. I was like, just kind of keeping her hair out of her face, making sure she's not hitting a table, just things that we trained to do. Right. And I told Dad, I was like, hey, Dad, everything's going to be okay. My daughter was around the same age as his daughter. So I was like, I understand you're scared. It's going to be okay. She's going to be fine, whatever. Like a year later, I get a message on Instagram, saying, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but, you saved my daughter's life. And I was like, I saved your daughter's life, and so for me, I thought it was kind of silly because I didn't do anything more than just, be there and be professional. And now him and I end up being really good friends throughout the years, where I've gotten to hang out with his family and his family's family, who his cousin's a lieutenant in the NYPD. And you just see these guys, and I know it's a different job, but it's kind of like the military. You're policing a hell of a lot more people in the city than you are in our agency, And I get guys like him who they say, do not give up. Take the test. Take it over and over and over again. Because I was like, what's the point of taking the test? I'm going to fail. He goes, if you don't take that fucking test, then you can't at least fight the opportunity to go, hey, I took it. I did it. I scored okay. Because I didn't score horrible. I just took it for the first time. Yeah. I got an 85. So I didn't score horribly for only studying for a couple months. I can do better. I can apply myself. But, I just kind of feel like, man, this kind of sucks. This is the only thing from keeping me in moving forward in a promotion. And that's what I need to buckle down. I need to buckle down. I need to study, and I need to know my shit.
All right. I have a question, and I'm going to combine the questions. It's two questions.
Sure.
For you, just so we can get into, I feel like we already went off the rails like we usually do.
This is going to set up into exactly the things we're talking about, where it's your experiences, things like that, and how it portrays into you.
Yep.
So a question for Bryan is, how did military life, and I would say police life, affect you and your wife's mental health?
And hold on, I want to add one more into that, because I think it plays in.
Go for it.
Changing even from, with all that, from the Marines to the Air Force with the different leaderships, because I think that touches on a lot of different people, because a lot of this your mental health can stem from your leadership or your boss or your working condition. How did that change, or how has it progressed from or declined from Marines, Air Force to law enforcement?
Well, first off, my wife's a saint. She.
That's a good start. I would say the same about mine.
my wife,
especially
is awesome.
If she's going to listen to the episode.
Love you.
I wouldn't be able to do. I wouldn't be able to have my career. I wouldn't be able to function as well as I do in my career without my wife. Both my careers, my military career and my police career. We often joke that, she's like a single mom, because all of the birthday parties and the events that she goes to, that I'm either forced working overtime or I'm away at a school, with the military, and she sticks with me with it, and she encourages me to do it and, to progress further in my military career, which I hope to do. And having two kids at home, it's a tough job. It's a job for her, and it's a more difficult job when I'm not there to back her up. But she's
employed full time as well.
She is, yeah.
But even more.
Yeah, she's a full time teacher, and she comes home after dealing with everybody else's kids at the end of the day, and then has to deal with our kids, and it's draining, and I can see that it's draining. And it's really rough on her, but we make it through. And then, going from a different branch, like I said before, it was different leadership styles, going from the Marine Corps to the Air Force, and then getting on the police department. And like we have already said, seeing the lack of leadership, and the mental health support is definitely not there on my department. We have a stress counselor that's available to us through the union. He's great. But there's so many other things that play into mental health and your work environment. And I feel like it's too much, that it's always kind of, but you make so much money. Just do what you just do your job. It doesn't matter how you feel or what you see. You're paid really well to do
it's
that.
Like you're tossing money into a problem, and that's supposed to fix the problem.
Money can't fix that.
No.
Can you blame them though? Can you blame the public, right, for having that thought process? Because we've never allowed them to know or really to understand that cops are people too.
Yeah.
I have not seen, or I have not heard it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have not heard politicians and the public and the representatives come up and go, hey, you know what? We need to talk about our cops. We need to talk about longevity.
Not until something happens.
Yes.
Well, of course, that's what happens.
Of course. Pony show
Of
where
course,
it's,
of course. We didn't know. We didn't see the signs, this and that and the other.
Right.
I just don't think that we talk about it as much as we should and how much we need. I think you have a question, to ask Brian about that.
So going into this, my first one, it's texted these guys the one, but I want to ask another one as well. The lack of leadership. How does that portray into yours or your unit's mental health, the stability? Because I know we've seen it all in our prospective jobs, where when you don't have that leadership, I mean, everything's almost a negative, and you almost go into that instant dark spiral, which then translates to almost everything else. You just find the negative.
Well, I mean, so yes, it's a support system. Right, leadership is in a lot of ways a support system. Okay, and when that support system fails, or it's just not there at all, you're going to fail at your job. But you're not going to be able to function. So that carries over into the home life too, because you as being a father, I often bring my stress home. And it kind of rolls off onto my wife and it rolls off onto my kids. And I try and do my best to not let that happen. But I'll find myself, yelling at my 2-year-old son for something that I need to just stop and think about how should I handle this as a leader? Because that's what I am essentially as a father. I'm a leader. And going back to the police department and having bosses that you are just bosses, they're not leaders. And do as I say, not as I do is such a common trend, or the worst thing that you can say to somebody, and I can't stand it when it comes from either bosses or supervisors or whatever.
Because I told you to do so.
No. Well, that's one of them too. But the main thing is this is the way it's always been done. This is the way it's always been done. Oh yeah, this is the way it's always been done.
Doesn't mean it's the right way.
Doesn't mean it's the right way, and you're lazy not wanting to change it, or you just don't want to take that on and change it. And
can I ask you a question? Are you aware? Like, because you just said something really nice that you said, in the moment when I'm yelling at my kids, or if I'm taking out on my
Which
kids,
is something we've talked about numerous times.
Are you aware in the moment that you're doing that, or do you think that it just becomes so habitual that you are now going from dealing with the stress at work, right? Because you can only handle so much at work at times too, right? You start off with, hey, how are you? I'm officer, blah, blah, blah. And then you start talking about certain things, and then you try to calm the situation, but this person's kind of going up, and then you unfortunately start kind of matching energy. Do you learn how to calm yourself down at work, and then you're then able to do it at home? Or do you just feel like you just react, or you just kind of blow up at home, without even noticing you're doing that?
I have learned, I've come a long way from, I used to not know that I was doing it. And I think like things like this, like what you guys are doing and talking with, other people that are in similar career fields or in the military and that are experiencing the same thing, and that have gone through that sort of experience kind of has really, it pops up in my head when I'm in a situation like that. Like, hey, what are you doing? You're yelling at your 2-year-old for spilling his seltzer. You know what I mean? Like, how does that affect you? How do you feel that? Right? Because now we're getting into something deep, right? You're getting into the effects of mental health, physiological changes. Like, what is that doing to your body when you're, because it's not just thoughts, right? We talk about, intrusive thoughts. We talk about, internal tremors. We talk about sweating. We talk about heart rate going up, fight or flight response. What is that doing to you? And do you feel the same effects at work that you do at home? I'm not really sure. I mean, I have definitely at work. It's different, I think, because a lot of the situations that you get into at work, your adrenaline's going, right? Whereas my adrenaline's not going to start pumping when I'm angry at my kid.
Are you sure?
I don't feel the same way. I don't feel the same.
It's
way.
Not the same response.
No, it's not.
Correct.
I don't think it's the same response. But I know what you're getting at. But no, I don't feel the same way, because I think that feeling that when you're fighting with somebody, trying to put handcuffs on them, or if it's an EDP or that you're dealing with, I think it's a different adrenaline rush, and it's a different button that gets pushed than like that anger that I have to stop and think, why am I getting angry at my son? And I have progressed, I think, that to where I do stop myself and I'm like, would I want him to be this way to someone? What? Because I wouldn't yell at people that I would just walk up to on the street, right? You wouldn't just do that. So why would I yell at my son like that? Do I want him to act that way when he gets older? No, I don't.
So that's called emotional growth, though, because if you ask other people, with the trauma response, that's naturally what happens, right? It's proven. You read it in books. You can look at it through psychology. You can ask a therapist. When you have trauma that's stored in your body, right, especially from a young age, they say that you could hear a song, right? That, let's say, for example, you're at a party and you got in a fight and your adrenaline went up and whatever. That response might react again 10, 15 years later down the road, right? So when you're dealing with something at work and you can say, hey, this is not the same thing. This is my kid. Mm-hmm. I can't treat him this way. Yep. You are now entering into a whole dimension of, control, right? You're able to identify that problem. Hey, I can't yell at my kid. I can't treat my kid like this, because I could tell you from being a parent and having almost a 10-year-old daughter, that was not me 5-10 years ago. I would treat my daughter the same way as I would treat somebody when I was set at work. And that's a freaking problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. We talk about the divorce rate in law enforcement, in the military. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? It's not because they stop appreciating you.
Nope.
It's not because they don't love you anymore. It's because of the way that you're going to work and you're taking all the aggression out from bad leadership, a bad day, a bad call, whatever it may be at home, and they don't deserve it.
No, they definitely don't deserve it. And I'm still working, on things, and
that's what we all are.
We all are.
And in every aspect of our life, you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be growing emotionally. You're always going to, but you have to realize those problems and you have to point them out. And that's what I like the most about what you guys are doing here is just talking about it, just talking about it.
I have two questions. One was one that Chris wrote in the group chat that we have. Yeah. And the other one is actually my question. You said your wife is like a single mom. How does she cope, right, with doing everything that she does? And how does her coping affect you? That would be my first question. And then my second question is, I know you, and I know you're a very busy person, and you try to stay busy. Is that because you're trying to avoid your mental health? Like, does that help you cope? Does you staying busy help you cope with things, whatever it is that you're going through? Those are my two questions.
Yeah, so
take your time.
So my wife, fortunately, we have a great support system with my in-laws. My in-laws are really awesome. My mother-in-law, she's another saint. She does she when I'm not there, when I'm at work, when I'm when my wife's at work, when I'm away in the military, my mother-in-law is always there, helping us out. And that really, is a huge help. And that's one of the ways that we get through things. But my wife also does, she's into fitness. Like, she'll go to a class in the morning when she has some time, and she'll do her thing there. And that helps her. Just honestly, like, you don't realize the value of time until you have kids, until you're doing all this stuff. And then, like, when my wife gets 15 minutes to herself, like, she'll just sometimes go in the bathroom and she'll just sit in the bathroom for 15 minutes just so she can have 15 minutes of quiet time. And it's like,
it's so crazy because sometimes I drive places with no music on, no anything on, literally just quiet inside my car. And I'll be driving for half an hour and then I'm like, damn, I'm not even listening to anything. It's just because I enjoy the damn quiet. Like
Jen used to
downtime.
Makes fun of her, and she goes,
it's so insane.
Now I do it on the way home after work because I get out at 11. So I'm like, I'm shot. It's been a day, and I won't put any music. I'm driving home. Like,
it's so peaceful.
You can breathe.
Yeah, it's so peaceful.
It does the opposite of what you think. Because I'm somebody that loves music, and I thought the music's a great way, to help
me too
work through mental health.
I do anything
feelings,
with music,
emotions. I have found, especially if there's stress in a long day, something like that, the no music, just driving and just...
Isn't that crazy?
It's almost like you're not driving away from the problem, but you're just almost like driving through everything you're dealing with. It's like when you get home, I sit there, I'm like, oh shit, everything just...
Yeah, I actually talked to a few people about that, because I thought that it was so bizarre that, like you said, we love music, and now it's almost like a triggering thing if you are stressed already. and you've had a long day or you already don't feel good. And instead of like, because I used to just blast the music, right? Like when you go to the gym, when you put on some emo, metal, hardcore shit, whatever, to get yourself into the mood. And is that what it is? And now I could find myself just turning the music off, like you said, driving home, and it's like I'm doing breathing exercises. I'm like, who am I? But it really does calm the nervous system. You just left work. Let's say you had a long day, you had some bad calls, you got an argument with your wife over the phone when you were home, and now you're like, I got to go back home. Like, here we go. You're going from stress to stress to stress, which is why I think I would ask the same question that Angel asked, like, how do you guys cope with it? And do you notice that some people, for example, I don't know if any of the listeners or any of you guys are like I am, but I'm getting better at it. I'm working on, like you said. But if I have a problem with somebody or like somebody, I want to fix it now. Yep. I don't want to talk about it later. I don't want to. It's almost like, and that's toxic. I've realized that it's toxic because you need to breathe. You need to slow things down. You need to separate. Right?
Do what?
Do that? Do you have something that needs to fix it, right? Because I'm the same way. Jen hates it. But
my wife's like, just go in that room and let's just take a breather.
Now.
Just hold on.
It depends what the situation is.
And it
depends who it's with.
Yeah.
Yes, some issues I do want to fix them right there. But for my own health, like mental health, sometimes I need to sit on something, maybe for a day or maybe for a few hours. Because I need to calm myself down. The thing is that you don't understand. Like, I have to calm myself down because I might say things the wrong way or might react the wrong way to something that you're saying once I bring it up. So I need to give myself all the scenarios in my head to make sure that everything's going to be cool when we do talk about it. So some things yes and some things no.
So you almost go like a little debrief in your head before you go into
myself. Like I need that sometimes, depending on what it is.
I can imagine that's helpful if you learn how to do that. But just like the music, right? A lot of people say, because you said that you told Jen that's crazy, right? Isn't that something you need to be able to identify? Like, hey, I can drive home with the music off. I can sit with my thoughts. It's just that the problem is that most people don't know how to do that.
No, I agree. Or they're just scared to.
But the way to do it is do it.
Yeah. Which is part of this whole thing. Is almost like an acceptance. You got to accept that something's going to be uncomfortable, but it's for your better health to just accept that, okay, that it's like it's okay to not be okay saying.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, okay, I struggle with this. I struggle with wanting to fix something or lashing out. And because it's admitting it and then B, okay, now how do I fix that? How do I make it better?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, and look, I'm guilty of this a lot. Like I tend to keep a lot of stuff in. My wife knows that and she gets angry at me. And I have to work on getting more stuff out and talking more. I know that I have to do that. And that's one of the things we need to do to cope with. But I went to a mental health, like a mental health first responder course. And one of the things that they were talking about in there, like about preventing the high number of suicides, is that a lot of these people that do wind up doing it,
they bottle it in.
They bottled it. They never talk to anyone about it. And just them talking about it could have just meant, hey, like there's someone here that I can talk to.
You get it off your chest.
You get it off your chest. And then that could have stopped them. So like that's always something
it could have helped.
Yeah, it could have never know. But we'll never know.
Correct.
Exactly. But to answer your second question about keeping busy.
Correct. Because I know you're a very busy man.
Yeah. So I think that what I do to keep busy is like not like avoids my mental health stuff, but it feels like something inside me that I enjoy doing, and that well, a lot of the stuff that I do, it's fulfilling to me to help, especially service members, veterans. It's what I love to do, and it helps me, I think.
It's almost like
helping others helps you.
Yes,
and that's how you stay so. Because a lot of the stuff you do, for those of you that don't know him, which is probably everyone, you do a lot of stuff for veterans.
Yeah,
a lot, whether in your police department or outside of your police department. I see everything you post and I see what you talk about, and it's mostly veteran eccentric. It's centered around veterans and helping them and their well-being, whether that's a soup kitchen or a job fair like we were talking about earlier. Whatever that might be, you're very involved in that realm.
Well, and that to me has a lot to do with mental health, because So the whole reasoning for me getting into that was because I was told something that affected me negatively.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, basically, I'm never going to let another person feel this way, helpless, the way that I felt. I felt helpless. I felt that there's nothing I could do in this situation. Everyone's telling me I'm basically screwed. I'm going to have to work longer than everybody else because I decided to go away on active duty in the military, and boom, you're screwed. That's it. And I accepted that for a while. And it took having conversations with other people to realize that's not the truth. I had to educate myself, but then I vowed to educate other troops, service members, veterans, to never have to go through that, because it was a drain mentally. It honestly was depressing.
It was a burden.
It was a burden. It was depressing. And the look that I see on people's faces when I just inform them of a benefit that they didn't know about, or a piece of legislation that can help them better their home life situation, because it all seesaws, right? Our work life, our home life, and you have to balance them. But if one is taking a toll on you mentally, you're gonna bring it home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anything I can do to try and, help troops, service members, regardless of what career field they're in, doesn't have to be law enforcement. My organization just was born out of the department I work for, because there wasn't one there before.
Correct.
So we said, well, me and another guy got together and said, hey, let's create this, and let's be a support system for anybody. They don't have to just be on our job. They could be any service member, veteran that needs help. Let's help them.
But that's the thing. Just like this platform, you saw something that was needed in your department, right? You saw that there wasn't a veteran-centered organization, right, to help veterans in the job. That's the same thing we saw when we sat down and we started talking about having this podcast. It's like, there's not enough people talking about mental health, definitely not in the jobs that we do. And I feel like, again, it can help somebody else listening to us talking about our stories and listening to our guests talking about their stories. It might just help that one person or two people or three, however many it helps, by just listening to us sharing, and now they feel comfortable enough to share their story. Because that's the thing about me. I never share my story. Nobody knows. My family never knew about my story. And it's okay. I don't want anybody to know, because I didn't want anybody to feel pity for me. That's not what I want. So when I see my two friends going through their own mental health struggles, which is Matthias and Chris, and I started sharing a little bit because I saw what they were going through, and when I saw how positive of an effect it had on them, I was like, man, we should try to do something like this. Just having a group of friends just talking and helping each other.
We've
and that's
seen
what I want to
already,
do.
even from this podcast, right? How many people, even this last week, we've been reached out to by, close friends, wives. Hey, they want to talk about the wives, which we've talked about, which is fantastic. But so my husband loves this. I think it's working well for him. To one of the messages we got today from a female who works in law enforcement, saying how it helps her, and she does a ladies' night, and she's going to bring it up in that with first responder wives and stuff like that. It's the amount of feedback we've gotten that this is helpful, even from you saying it, like it's helpful. I think goes to show, A, talk about it, but B, again, just being comfortable with yourself to say, I don't have to be this perfect slate of a human being. Almost probably everybody has something that they're dealing with. You just don't know. Not that you need to throw it out there, but let it be known. Let it be known to your friends, family. Let it be known that this is going on.
I just saw this this quote, which is very popular, and a lot of people know it.
Where do you see it? Social media?
No. I mean, well, it does pop up on social media.
No, we only got like 7 or 8 minutes left.
It does pop up on social media, but I was scrolling through like Google or something, looking for something, and it came up, and it's Robin Williams. We all love Robin Williams. Yeah, it says, everyone you meet. I don't know the guy. I don't love him. I don't know him. This fucking guy. We can't ever get empathy from this fucking guy. I swear to God. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always. Right? I'm sure a lot of people have seen this quote, and it's crazy because I think before this year, I wouldn't have really thought that. And you can't blame people for that. If they haven't been through their chapter, right? If they haven't been through their season where they're dealing with any kind of mental health issues, I think it's understandable looking back now that I would have never known about these topics, you know? And if we do speak about these topics and you haven't been through these moments in your life that are difficult, then now you have the information, right? It's almost like.
But was that a cultural problem and a growing up problem? Because we didn't know about it because I'm guessing it was never talked about to you when you were a kid.
No.
It wasn't you, wasn't me.
No, absolutely.
Almost everybody. But that's the thing. Like how you're dealing with your frustrations and your kids. Because I've talked to them about doing the same exact thing. I've already started talking to my kids. I'm like, hey, buddy, when you feel like the inside is just going haywire, like it's okay to be anxious. Like I'm already not saying he has anxiety, but like, everyone gets it. I'm just telling it's okay to be anxious. It's okay to feel like the insides are going crazy. Let's take a breath. Let's work through. So
I'll say for you, Brian, when you deployed, right?
Yeah.
You felt however you felt. But in 2008 and 2009, nobody was talking about mental health.
But that's my point.
No, and the fact that now you can just look, there's a time to be tough, right?
Yes.
There's a time to be tough, but then there's a time that you have to be able to admit that I got a lot on my plate.
Let's call it vulnerable.
Let's call it vulnerable.
Yeah,
be vulnerable, exactly. And those conversations were not normal conversations when we were kids.
No.
And the fact that we can now have those conversations with our kids, teach them, teach our sons, teach our daughters that there is a time to be tough and there's a time to be vulnerable. I think that's going to help with the mental health crisis a lot.
You know what's awesome about this is all four of us are parents, and maybe we have the ability and that awesome opportunity in the next couple of years to talk to our kids about it and even have them come on a podcast, right, and talk about certain things. But maybe we don't know. I haven't really had an opportunity to talk to my daughter about it. I mean, I did, take Tiana to speak to a therapist because she had like some little traumatic thing happen where, her grandfather dressed up as like a character for Halloween, and her mom left to go grab a cup of coffee. And he's by accident, right? He didn't realize that his daughter had left, and that Tiana was home alone for like 20 minutes or whatever. So it's getting dark out. He's coming up with this mask and stuff. No. Tiana's freaking out, and her backyard is kind of like open fields, and there's horses, so they make a lot of noise at night and whatever. And she freaked the fuck out, and I can't leave the kid alone for 5 minutes because she gets like this, this separation anxiety. So I was like, hey, sweetie, like it's okay to be home for a couple minutes, because her mom and I can't even go down the street without her freaking out. So, she went and talked about it. And as a parent, I wanted to break down and cry because hearing your own kid face some of those fears that I'm facing as an adult as 35 years old and she's 9, it's almost like I'm so happy that she has the resources that let her know, hey, it's okay to feel these things, And maybe it hasn't necessarily been like that with every guest that we bring on the show. Maybe they have had kids that went through a traumatic thing and they might be already exposed to it at such a young age where they maybe did go to counseling. Maybe they did get therapy. Maybe they did talk about anxiety, like Chris said, with their kids, from the start. Yep. But me, 35 years old, the culture has been, we don't talk about this stuff. You man up and you
suck it up and go.
Which again, like you said, at some point, this is still partially true. You got to work through, okay, just right now I can't deal with this. I have to work through whatever I'm doing, whatever the situation is in front of me. But I think, like you touched on, and same with you guys, is when you have that moment. I mean, it took me a while to even open up to my own wife and feel like, hey, I'm just gonna let this out because I don't know what else to do. Obviously, you guys know, Jen. It's always, you can always talk to me, and I'm probably sure your wife, and I know your guys was the same way. You can always talk, but you're always afraid to let that out because A, you don't want to seem weak, B, you don't want to feel judged. But once I got rid of that and accepted that portion, it was like, you know what? She's not going to judge me. I'm not weak for it. And if she does judge me or whoever that person is, there's other people you can find that won't judge you for it. And opening up and being that, A, the relationship got stronger, but B, you're able to completely, like you said, offload. You're not bottling anymore. You're offloading all of that. And then same thing when we came to talk to you about it. And then same thing, Matt, when you talked to the two of us, when you were like, oh shit, you guys are doing with us. Just being open and having that conversation. Because again, when we were kids, you didn't. It was bottle it up, suck it up, don't be a pussy, and go on your way. I'm glad that that's changing. I'm glad that whole perception is no longer how we're looking at mental health.
I have another question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned your wife does her workout for coping with things, takes some time to reflect on things where she's quiet and there's no noise. for you, what coping mechanisms do you have, whether positive or negative? Remember, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
So we have people that have come on and said, hey, this were my coping mechanisms, which were negative, but now I'm working on finding positive ones. So what coping mechanisms do you have currently?
Well, I mean, I like to
Other
cook.
than staying busy.
Yeah, I like to cook too, you know, so I enjoy cooking.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good one.
I enjoy cooking. I enjoy cooking for people.
Like
You know, I enjoy I enjoy
He did a pretty good brisket not too long ago.
yeah, I did. That was an excellent brisket. That took me like 24 hours. But
We should do an episode of
delicious.
just smoking briskets. What do you smoke on?
yeah, I have a master built gravity fed
Oh, that means I have a big green egg. Is that like that?
no, this has a computer on
I have
it,
a purple
but
egg.
Computer on it.
yeah, I like to cook. So I do that, and I enjoy cooking for people because I enjoy seeing people's reactions to eating good food.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Or
satisfying
what you think
for
is
me.
good food.
Or what I
What
think
makes
is
you
good
think
food.
it's
Oh,
good?
please, that brisket went in like 5
The
minutes. a
brisket
couple
was
hundred
good.
people.
But
We'll be the
it's
judge of
everything
that.
else. You know, like you can't be tooting your own horn like that to the point where you think everybody's thinking your food is great.
All right, so next time you guys have me on, I'll
Chef
do ribs.
Ramsay.
I'll bring
I do
some
want
ribs
to
over
I
for
do
you
want to
guys.
try it.
You got fucking Gordon
I
Ramsay
got
over
the
here.
sweats.
Brian Ramsey.
No, and I also enjoy woodworking. I like to build things, so
Nice.
I'll go into my garage. I have a wood shop in my garage.
So maybe you and Chris can get together
Yeah,
and build
this
us
guy
some
likes
nice
to build.
designs.
That's why
Make us like a flag or like a big flag.
But you know what? You take your. It's almost the same thing. You take your time.
Yeah.
Measures.
He likes to build things, and we,
Shoot
as
thing.
a group, like to demolition. We have a demo company.
Call Chris and me. We'll come
Chris.
fuck your shit up.
That's it.
Nice.
Chris and me
I
will
like
come
it.
fuck your shit up.
That gets a lot of stress out of breaking things.
Yeah,
breaking things
yeah.
apart.
We
Yeah.
destroyed my apartment in one apartment I had in my other house.
And a shed.
Yeah, we destroyed
other
it.
things.
We've done a few demos, and it's been phenomenal. I've enjoyed every second of it.
I do agree because it slows you down.
Yeah.
You need to pay attention. You need to focus, but at the same point, you can kind of zone out a little bit just because you're so
Yep.
focused on what you're doing. And then when you're done, you're holy shit! Look what I built. Even if it's a fucking birdhouse, like it's something that I think a lot of people should get into.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to get into, just to therapeutic.
We're naming great things, cooking and demolition and woodwork and everything else. But let's get to the root of the question, though. Did you realize in the beginning that this is a coping mechanism, or did you just go, "Hey, I like doing this," and you didn't realize why you liked it?
No, I mean, I just like doing it. You know, like I've definitely had bad coping mechanisms in the past. Like, you know, I've drank a little more than I should on occasions. And I think getting older now, realizing that that's not the only way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because I have done that in the past. You know,
I think all of us have. You know,
I think almost every cop in the military is just.
And we spoke
Yeah.
about this in
I remember
another
your episode on that.
well, we talk about what alcohol is, right? It's an antidepressant. So you start drinking alcohol, it makes you
to
feel better.
suppress. You're
You know,
suppressed.
You suppress
Yeah.
everything.
You get numb.
So you're not going to say, "Hey, my coping mechanism is cooking because I like it." No, well, it makes you essentially feel better.
It does.
It,
Yeah.
it
It
makes
puts a
you.
mask on a pig.
Yeah, but there's so many other things.
You never heard that saying?
Said the farm boy.
Upstate New York coming out.
You've never heard that saying?
No.
The lipstick on a pig, I guess is the actual saying, but
Yeah. Yeah.
really? Have you ever heard that?
Yes, I've heard the lipstick on the
maybe
pig.
it's just
Yes.
good for- Listen, I've wrestled pigs, yes. Leave me alone.
There's so many other things that, you know, I wish we had more time, but I recently did an Irreverent Warrior silky hike. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of a silky hike. I didn't hear about the first part.
So Irreverent Warriors is the name of the organization that I guess kind of originated the silky hike. And I recently did one in New York City, and it's their primary mission is just to stop veterans from killing themselves. That's it, is you know, raise awareness.
Let me ask you a question, because this is kind of like dear to my heart, because the whole suicide thing is a trigger for me, you know, and I've talked about that on my podcast.
Yeah.
What are these organizations doing, or what?
You have another podcast?
We talked about it in my podcast, like in
your episode.
in my episode. Excuse
Jesus
me.
Christ.
I apologize. Amen. So you go on a silky hike,
Yeah.
right? Or you do things with other veteran organizations that raise awareness on suicide.
Yeah.
What do you think these organizations are doing to raise awareness? Like what? Because I could also go outside and go, I'm painting my house, I'm raising awareness for veteran suicide. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
what?
true. Or do 22 push-ups
Right,
and you're
22
quote,
push-ups.
unquote, raising
well,
awareness.
We want to stop veteran suicide, but as a veteran, I hold that dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, like probably you and us, we've lost people we love,
Yeah.
you know, to suicide. What the fuck are you doing? That's what I want to know.
So the Irreverent Warriors, I think I had a really
really massage Matt real quick. This is commercial break.
I've heard other organizations go, we're raising awareness.
Yep.
Now, what is the awareness you're raising? That's really my question.
Yeah. So I feel your passion on that, and I think you would really like what Irreverent Warriors does.
Let's go, sign me up.
Because they're raising awareness through camaraderie and humor, bringing a group of veterans together. We're all dressed really silly. Everybody that shows up is wearing silkies,
good
at the very least.
You got to take off the netting too.
But then you got a guy who showed up wearing a
silkies are very short shorts, like you know the orange Hooter
shorts?
You know the Hooter shorts.
Marines use it a lot at the gym. Just look at somebody with a green short,
those green shorts,
super short
those
shorts.
are silkies.
Yeah.
Those are Marines.
Now, if you're in the infantry, you cut the inside out too, right?
Just if you're
they're also known as
Just
Ranger panties,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So it's just a group of people coming together, dressed silly, from every walk of life. You know, the best experience I think about the military is the people from different walks of life. You have different people from every different background. It is the most diverse organization, on the planet, and these different mentalities and personalities coming together, especially at an event like Irreverent Warriors, where you can act how you want to act and be who you want to be, as long as you're happy and as long as you are promoting happiness amongst your fellow veterans and service members, trying to prop them up. Hey, I know you may have been in a bad place before you came here today, but brother or sister, I'm here for you now. Let's walk, let's talk.
So one of the requirements is that you have to be happy.
I mean, yeah.
Don't do it on your down day, guys.
Well, someone may show up not happy, but then the environment that is being fostered at these events, it's literally we walked 10 and a half miles.
So hold on. So you may say somebody may not come in happy, but end up with a happy ending?
I would say yes, definitely.
Okay, nice.
I'm pretty sure we have a detective that's supposed to look into those.
What I like to just add on that is my goal, all right, with this podcast is, of course, sharing other people's stories as well as our own. Okay. But one thing that I want to touch on is the mission of whatever we decide to do together is to raise the awareness on information, right? I need information because by going to these other nonprofits, organizations are saying we're coming together to stop suicide. Listen, there's been plenty of people. We've talked about it. Another Robin Williams quote is that the people you have to worry about are not the ones who are faking being happy or faking sadness, but faking happiness, right? I've seen many of my friends come to events and they're happy and they're drinking and they're socializing, and it's the person they don't like is when they go home and they're by themselves, right? And why don't they like it? Because they don't know about intrusive thoughts. They don't know what anxiety feels like. They don't know what depression means. They don't know any of these things. So this is the stuff that I would like to open up about and talk about so that people like us who have been in some weird, dark places in our life due to our professions, right, that we talk about it with our friends and go, hey, man, listen, I know you're here and I love that and I appreciate it. I'm not going to sit there and go, hey, do you want to kill yourself? Like that's taboo, right? That's not the way you raise awareness. You raise awareness by talking like we're doing now. And we talk about some other people that we love, right? Because I can tell you that a bunch of the Marines that I served with that unfortunately succumbed to suicide was people that I question all the time. They were fucking happy, man. They were always smiling. They were always there. They were going out with the rest of the guys. It's not like they were that person who is isolating themselves all the time.
But that doesn't mean they were happy. That means they
exactly they were
acting
just like you said.
Yeah.
They were masking.
They had a facade.
They were masking the pain.
Putting a mask on a pig.
I think people being able to, like you said, having the conversations be out there, I find more and more solace knowing that I'm not the only person in the boat.
They say misery loves company.
So, it's like, if you're sitting in a tunnel and you have a flashlight on, the tunnel's still pretty dark. But through this podcast, through talking, through understanding that there's more and more people dealing with these things, now you're adding more and more flashlights to that dark tunnel. That tunnel is not so dark anymore. Or you got somebody by your side.
Just normalizing the conversation is I think, a small step that a lot of people need. To just be like, there's other guys that are like me that are talking about this. I could talk about it too.
Let's hit it right where we're doing this podcast. the people, I want it to impact everybody. Honestly, I want this conversation to reach
100%.
everybody, but specifically people in our profession. We've talked about it in numerous other podcast shows. The reason why a lot of people don't want to speak up is because they're scared to lose their job. They're scared to get their gun taken.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to see, what my hope would be, is to see the departments, which they're doing a good job. I'm going to say it right now. I've seen at least our department start to step it up, right? With training, with communication, with peer teams, with whatever. With, Angel and I are both on the peer team, and I've had numerous people call me on the side, and we were able to get them help, right? And they were like, man, like, that's weird. Like, how I felt like that for like a week, and now I'm back to myself. Yeah, sometimes the quote of the day, right, from Angel is, it takes time.
Yeah.
I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe that things are going to get better in time, because in the moment, it feels like you're in a tornado, right? And he used to use those things. You're in the eye of the storm, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, I wanted to hear, like, what is going to fix it? Give me the medication.
Yeah.
Give me let me take a vacation. Let me go on a trip. Let me do whatever it is.
Yep.
I want it fixed now. And unfortunately, we can't fix things now. So that is the conversation that we can have with first responders, right? Or people doing a very, scary job, in a sense of like maybe fearful of losing their job, that we may be able to come to terms that, hey, I think we want to help rather than hurt the first responder.
All right, I have two things. One is a quote that Billy sent me, which states something along the lines that I don't know. No, Billy.
I know.
We know who we're talking about.
I was just trying to be silly.
And the quote says something along the lines as, don't take life too seriously because we won't make it out alive. I love that quote, right? Great for mental health. Don't take it too seriously. Now, closing statement for you, for the listeners, about coping, about whatever it is that you want them to know, of how you deal with things, how you cope with things, whatever it is that you want the listeners to know. Go.
I would just say, talk with people, learn, share information.
Talk about it.
But share information, share things that you learn, share resources that you're aware of, share things that you, as a leader, as a father, whatever you want to be, share things that can help other people. Don't keep them to yourself, because you never know. One conversation with someone may change their life, and it's worth having that conversation.
So basically, just be open, talk about it, find the right people to talk about it, because not everyone is going to be willing to listen to you and be open about it. Correct.
Yeah.
Actually, be open about it with yourself, knowing
that video diary thing, man. I still do it. That video
that's a great idea.
Talking to yourself.
I haven't done it yet, but it's a great idea.
Being open with yourself and vulnerable with yourself. It's it's a huge way, at least, to make that first step, to then, because if you're comfortable with yourself, you're gonna talk to other people about it.
Yep.
So, all right, brother. Thank you for coming on. Your story was great. Some huge things I think a lot of people could take away from, especially being parents. I love the fact that we bring a lot of this stuff, parenting and kids, into this, because I think that's a whole nother aspect in people that deal with things on the other side from being in law enforcement and in military. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for opening it up and giving the viewers a little bit of insight and some ideas on how they can work.
The listeners. And speaking of the listeners, listen, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have TikTok, we have Spotify, we have Apple Music, we have everything. Just reach out.
Radio.
At Another Cops Mentality. At Another Cops Mentality is the handle.
Message us. We love you. Where's that?